everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to the November Board of Corrections meeting and call the meeting to order. I'll start with the approval of the September 22nd minutes. If somebody could make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? And those opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. The next item we have is for the approval of the 2024 board meeting schedule. And I think everybody should have it in their packet. But as we discussed at the last meeting, if you were here, we are leaving the meetings here at central office indefinitely. But we'll make everybody aware if you do switch it to the institutions.
I would make a motion, we approve the 2024 board meeting location.
Thank you. Thank you. Having a motion and then a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we will adopt the 2024 board meeting schedule. Our next board meeting will be Thursday, February 1st, at central office again, as mentioned. And at this point, I will call on Director Singer for a welcome.
Good morning. You guys hear me okay? Morning, Jim.
Thanks for joining me by phone.
Just a few updates. So just recently we conducted several feedback forums, one at Newton and one at 7th District. We had a really, really good showing. Staff are very proud of the work that they're doing. We've got a lot of great information. Just really impressed. Staff was talking about alignment, talking about the great things they're doing. So I thought it was a huge success. We'll continue doing those feedback forums in the months to come. In the news, so Iowa recidivism dropped for a third year in a row. So this year, which is FY 2023, our recidivism is 34.3%, down 2.7% from last year. And total recidivism reduction since FY 20 is 5.3%. So I want to talk a little bit about why we think that is. First and foremost, I think it's important to acknowledge our staff. Our staff has done an amazing job. Hi Trent, how you doing?
Sorry,
No worries. Our staff has done an amazing job. Our staff are committed to this department, to rehabilitation, and I want to just do a shout out to all staff. It's because our staff doing the hard work, focused on rehabilitation. Also, I believe our commitment to evidence-based practices. You're very, everything we do is evidence-based. We use data to make decisions. We look at our programming. We look at our training. Everything's evidence-based. We also want to make sure we have fidelity to the evidence-based practices that we do. So when I say fidelity, I'm talking about continuous quality improvement. So this department is committed to continuous quality improvement because you can have evidence-based practices all day long, but if you don't have fidelity to the work that you're doing, those won't have the intended outcomes. Also, we've done a lot of work around revising and improving training. Roxanne is here today. She's our Learning Center Director. We've revised our academy. We revised some of our training. We want to make sure that our staff have the tools they need to be successful. Another thing I think that we do really well is that we're very innovative. Again, as mentioned, we're very data-driven. We use dashboards. We dive into the data when there's something that maybe looks problematic. We pull the data and we look at it and we study it. And I think another thing too that makes us so successful is our commitment to always improving. This department will always be committed to improving and being innovative as we move forward. I also want to talk about a little more is with alignment. Alignment happened July 1st. We've been working towards alignment and the integration between the CBCs and prisons. I think that's we're going to have even better impacts on recidivism with alignment, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So with this alignment and being more integrated, it's going to create a more seamless transition for reentry. So as you all know, you've heard me talk before, about 90% of people are going to be leaving our prisons at some point. And so we have to have a good seamless transition. And like I said, the integration between the prisons and the CBCs are going to help that as be one system, one team. I also think with the alignment, in terms of risk reduction or risk mitigation, the consistency of practice, being on the same page. I think we're going to have improved release plans, better handoffs, and we're working together as one team. Also, through alignment, we're identifying really promising practices. So as we're going around the state, going to prisons, these feedback forums, going to CBCs, and doing the forums there, we're learning some great things that our staff are doing. Very innovative projects, tablet programs, things like that. And we want to scale that up. I mean, there's great potential there for us to do that kind of stuff. And one thing, the final thing I just want to mention is, which is I think very important, is the one team mentality. We're all in this together, we're one team. So as we continue to work on, the culture and alignment, which will take years, this really to be fully integrated. Some of the things we've been doing, I just want to make you aware of with staff, is we've been conducting surveys. So get a kind of baseline of our culture, how people are adjusting to alignment, things like that. Doing focus groups. We're doing a newsletter now. We've been doing director videos, which are kind of fun. We're learning about our culture. We're hearing from our staff, and we're hearing what they need and what they want. So our goal is to improve our culture. And as you know, culture doesn't happen overnight. But I would tell you, as long as I'm director sitting in the seat, we will be focused on culture and making sure we have the best, most supportive culture for our staff. And other things we're doing too is we continue to align our HR and practices and policies. Those are kind of more the technical operational stuff we're doing now. We're road mapping the next year for alignment and things to come. So we'll be sharing that with staff and our leadership. And so that's it. That's really all I have for my updates. So you guys have any questions? Larry's not here, so Denise, you really have to take that role now.
We need to get him online.
I know. Phone a friend.
Well, I do have a question.
Sure.
When you talk about culture, I would just love for you to share, like, what are some of the things that you're doing with culture? Like, what are you talking about?
So some of the things that we're learning is that through these focus groups and through like leadership and our frontline staff is that we're hearing things like staff want to be more part of decision making, for example. And so what we'll do is when we move forward with alignment, we develop these focus groups or these advisory groups, we're going to get a nice cross-section of staff, so staff will be part of those decisions, because I think it's important because they're the experts, they're the ones that have the boots on the ground. One thing we learned too is that they want to hear more. They want ongoing communication. So we have a communication strategic plan that's going to keep people informed in terms of things that we're going to be moving forward on. Also, which I mentioned earlier, Denise, was the roadmap. Staff want to know what the plan is. So we're hearing what they're saying and we're responding to that. So, but basically, what I'm hearing in a nutshell is staff just want to know what's going on. They want to be a part of that process, and they need to be part of that process. So we are having lots of meetings, meeting with, like those feedback forums are great to talk to staff and hear about things. So we're just, everything we learn, we're trying, from staff, we're trying to figure out how we can best support them and what they need.
Does any of your culture building include the incarcerated people at all? Do you blend that with them so that, it's not just a culture with the staff, but a culture that
Yeah. We have like councils and stuff like that, so, of course, they're the ones that are in our institutions, and we want to hear from them too. So we do have some things in place already that we use to get information and feedback from those that are incarcerated. So we listen to them as well. Good question, let's hear it.
I'm expecting, but I just want to clarify that your feedback, your top to bottom, all staff in corrections,
Yes.
it's not just a certain population.
No,
Is that correct?
it's top to bottom.
Right.
Yep. It's really important that we hear from our staff that are like boots on the ground, that are doing the work, the day-to-day, the ones that make us so successful. We want to hear from them. So you're going to be very, very strategic and thoughtful and inclusive as we move forward.
Thank you.
No, Jay, you can't ask me a question.
All right, well,
Go ahead.
I will anyway. I heard you talk about evidence-based practice and those things impacting reduction of recidivism. Have you been able to get funding towards programming too? Has that increased? Because my experience was when it started to go back up, about the time funding budgets were cut and things like that, we saw a reduction in that. But when it dropped before, when we had the funds to really focus on things, so.
Yeah, we have been investing in programming. So as you've heard us probably talk about before, I think we've had a presentation on the Tech to Connect program, which is a tablet program. We started in Mount Pleasant. Now it's an ICIW. We're scaling it up to other prisons and districts. So we've invested in that. So we know that investment in programming is going to give us a good return in terms of risk reduction. So we continue to keep our foot on the gas when it comes to programming, because we know it works. And when we do it with fidelity, we get good outcomes. Rick got nothing for me.
My wife has my glasses, and I'm going to have to put these on for just a moment.
Okay, I like it.
I've been trying to play it off. I'm trying to keep it real. I need my specs.
Yeah.
The question I have is that what is it going to take for the staff, wardens, the inmates, the board, and all of us to work together to just have these smooth sailing before we get back into the prisons?
And get back into the prison and
Well, for us to get back and going in and not be there at the central office, what is it going to take?
I just think that, we have to, right now, I think we just take it a kind of meeting at a time and just kind of see, how things are going. If it's time, if you guys decide you want to go to a prison, you can certainly, you guys can have that discussion. That's really your guys' decision. So that's something we just, you guys can decide amongst yourselves, and we'll support whatever you want.
That was a trick question, but the reason why I asked is because I get a lot of phone calls to the barbershop where I'm working, and they want to know, coming back in, or going to be into, the central office, or where you're going to be. And so that's the reason why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like to share this? Any other questions? Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, at this point, I'd like to call on Ken Berg for the presentation on sex offender civil commitment referral process.
Good morning. So today I wanted to come and speak about the sex offender civil commitment process and the Department of Corrections' role, specifically with the MDT. So the Department of Corrections has established an MDT per the Iowa Code, and the MDT's role is to identify potential sexual violent predators that need a closer review by the Attorney General's office. Then the next step from that after MDT is the Attorney General's office completes their review utilizing their resources, and then includes an outside expert to examine the cases to see if someone is being found as a sexual violent predator under Code 229A. The Prosecution Review Committee reviews the case, makes a decision, and then if it goes up to the next step, then it goes to district court where a judge will decide ultimately if the individual is replaced to do so. But focusing today specifically on Department of Corrections and the MDT role, the process starts upon admission. So when all individuals that come through IMCC, Oakdale, or ICIW, they are reviewed under the MDT criteria that was revised in 2015. Back in 2015, the Department of Corrections looked at their policy and wanted to hone in specifically on what the criteria of the 229 code has for reviewing these individuals upon admission. So when an offender is admitted into Department of Corrections, they look at 4 different criteria, and one of them is having more than one arrest or conviction for a sexually violent offense, or a sexually violent offense and sexually motivated disciplinary action while incarcerated, or a special sentence revocation with a sexual component, or the classification team determines that the convicted sex offender exhibits concerning sexual predatory behavior. So one of those core criteria on admission is where the counselor and the classification team makes a decision if there's an MDT requirement. So that piece of that review is within the first 30 to 60 days upon admission. After that, if they say yes, they meet one of those four criteria, then the DOC then runs monthly report, and the MDT then makes a decision, the MDT then reviews those individuals that meet that criteria to see if they should then move on to the next step. Offender services will be notified when an individual either completes treatment or they're getting closer to the end of their sentence and they have not done treatment. When they get notified, offender services then looks at the case and completes the referral packet for the MDT committee. In that referral packet, they look at current convictions, they look at MPD, TDD, discharge date, prior criminal record, minutes of testimony, victims' comments, length of sentence. They review all institution discipline to see if there's any sexual component to any discipline behavior that occurred while incarcerated. They also look at special sentence, they look at the release plan, they look at the reentry plan, detainers, all risk assessments that were done, all the treatment completion, and how successful they were in treatment. That referral packet is then given to the MDT committee, which is 5 members. Myself, a sheriff, we also have a psychologist from CDC, we have a representative from CASA, and then we also have the sex offender treatment director. So of those 5 members, they get the referral packet, the 30-day clock starts per code. We have 30 days to review all that information that offender services is providing. Once that review is completed, the MDT then makes a decision, votes on the case, and then determines if it goes forward to the Attorney General's office, or if the case doesn't go forward anymore, and the prison can process the release or move forward with their plans of reentry. The MDT decision letters are sent to the offender through their counselor, and then the Attorney General's office of that decision prior to that 30-day mark. All in all, upon admission, the DOC reviews between 500 and 600 sex offenders a year to determine if they meet that criteria. The MDT looks at about 80 or so per year to see if they meet that criteria. And then roughly 50 is probably the average the last 5 years of individuals then that are referred on to the Attorney General's office. If you look at the Iowa Code, some of the definitions for the sex offender 229A talk about the agency or jurisdiction. So referrals are going to come from typically the prison, but they can also come from the jails for the MDT. They also look at the appropriate secure facility. Code defines that. It means a state facility that is designed to confine an individual, such as a prison. Code talks about the convicted offenses. They talk about likely to engage in any sexually predatory acts or violence, and they define that as means that the person is more than likely or not that they'll engage in acts of sexual violence. Sexual violence. Sure. Sorry. Code defines mental abnormality. Mental abnormality is not a serious mental illness. It means that it's a congenital or acquired condition affecting the emotional or volitional capacity of a person that is predisposing them to sexual violent behavior. So that's more of a cognitive approach or more of a choice on whether they're going to continue to commit those overt sexual acts. Code talks about the safekeeper status, which is what the individual becomes when they are discharging their sentence. They stay at Newton if the court determines that and orders them to remain at Newton while they have the hearings to determine if they're going to go to CUSO. And then code also talks about what all the sexual violent offenses are and the sexual components of those. Murder, kidnapping, burglary, endangerment, any of those convictions that may have a sexually motivated part to that offense. Code defines sexual violent predator as a means a person who has been convicted or charged with a sexual violent offense and who suffers from that mental abnormality which makes the person likely to engage in predatory acts, including sexual violent offenses. And then code also gets into, which we won't today, the transitional release of Cherokee and Crusoe and how that works. So when it appears that a person who is confined that may meet the criteria for the sexual violent acts code says that the agency or jurisdiction must give written notice to the Attorney General's office. So as we described earlier, that's that piece of the MDT process. The letter is sent to the Attorney General's office and the offender with the results of that. Code also talks about the anticipated discharge. It says that the MDT and the Attorney General's office must make that decision 90 days before an offender is to discharge their sentence. Department of Corrections does it much earlier. We will review the individual and we will submit their name usually upon completion. The director of the Department of Corrections is the one that establishes the multidisciplinary team. Code talks about that it can include individuals from the outside agencies, which we discussed earlier, who the 5 members are. The Attorney General's office appoints their own PRT committee that does their review of the individuals. And then lastly, with the individuals that are appointed to the committee, code talks about how, lost my spot. It says the agency with jurisdictions, its employees, officials, and members of the multidisciplinary team established in Code Section 4 are members of the prosecution review committee and individuals contracting, appointed, or volunteering to perform these services under this section shall be immune from liability of any good faith conduct. What that's talking about is Code wants to protect those individuals to make sure, thank you. Code wants to protect those individuals to make sure that they're using good faith effort in reviewing all of these individuals that are going forth before the MDT when they're making that decision. To make sure that they're looking at all aspects of the case and to make sure that they're making clear and concise judgment on what they're seeing presented to them from all the information that's provided for the packet. I kind of wanted to open up this to questions more so to you guys today than to keep preaching about code and stuff. So essentially, I guess we'll move to that point now to see if the board has any questions about the MDT referral process.
Over the past months, I've had several members, a lot of members of the public, some family members, a lot of which I recognize some of them in the audience here today. A common theme that we've been hearing is that going through the program, they receive these great scores, determine that they're good for these. But at some point in the process, the change determines that that's just not the case. So what is happening in there that you think is, good for release, or they completed the programs with high marks, and then somewhere in the process you gave them simple release of their extended sentences? What's going along in that process from the training and the classes to you saying that no, this doesn't count? And you design these programs, how is it then that after they pass the programs that you designed, that you then still denying them afterwards?
Well, MDT specifically is looking at the code language to see if the individual meets the criteria as a sexual violent predator. And so the completion of treatment is a component of that. It's not the only thing, though, that's going to get an individual cleared. Just because an individual does complete treatment, it helps them through the process because it makes the MDT feel like they're putting a foot forward in the right direction to correct themselves. But the code language talks specifically about looking at the offenses also, looking at the history, looking at what individuals are and if they're motivated to possibly continue that behavior. So the MDT is not extending their prison stay. The MDT is looking at that and referring them on to the next step of the process, which is the Attorney General's office to do their review.
So then, essentially, the classes and all of that, that's useless because the rest of it completely overrides all of that. So there's essentially no point.
No, because there's several sex offenders, over 500 or so, that are getting out. So it's not useless because it's very beneficial to those individuals that are releasing. A small portion of them, though, have to stay and review to complete this process. And like I said, I know code language says MDT and Department of Corrections and the AG's office doesn't have to review them until 90 days before discharge. They could, by the way this is written, wait that long, but we don't. We try not to. We, as a Department of Corrections, as soon as they're done completing treatment, start our process, gather the paperwork, gather the referral packet, and present it to MDT as soon as we can, and then make that decision. The fact that it takes longer after that, we really don't have control over that piece of this.
Let someone else get a question in, so we don't want to find.
I think it's important to remember that 500 to 600 guys annually complete this program. Of that, maybe 50 are processed, and there's a reason for that. They've committed crimes, and there are victims out there that are involved in that, and it was heinous enough that they met the criteria of code to get that far. And I think you can't lose sight of the victim in this too, and what happened to them. So, somebody can complete a sex offender program. I've had guys at Mount Pleasant when we still had it there. They weren't a discipline problem. They did the program, they did everything. But it didn't change the fact that they victimized people out there in a terrible way. And they needed to be reviewed to make sure that wasn't going to happen again. So I just want to throw that out there. I think it's important not to lose sight of the victim too.
I was design a design a program that says, if you get through this program, it shows you've been rehabilitated.
No, I don't believe that's true. That's just like, I have a substance program, and I put somebody through that because I want to set the table to give them an opportunity to change. That doesn't mean they're going to change. That's a choice to me. That doesn't mean I shouldn't offer programming. Same with the sex offender. We want to reduce the opportunities for victimization. But in that 10% case of those 50 people, they need to be reviewed closely in a determination made, is this person a high risk, programming or not, to go out there and victimize somebody again? I just don't think we can lose sight of that.
When these denials happen, are you giving teachers an explanation as to why?
No. The information that is provided to the offender is, we tell them why, as far as what offenses are meeting the code criteria. And that information is then moved forward to the next level. So they're informed of the decision, but they're not informed of all of the discussions.
So they're not aware of what to work on or how to.
No, because that's not really our role in that process. Our role in the process is to, as code is written, is to look at the offender and look at the case and look at all of the aspects of it and make a decision if it moves to the next step. We're not even deciding that they should go to CUSO.
Is there any stage where someone tells them what they can improve on, or is it just set up and fail and not get a chance to improve themselves so that they can get out?
Sure.
And not fully give them the opportunity to improve.
Absolutely. That's the treatment process, that's the reentry process, that's the process with their case manager, their counselor, all the programming that's done in the institution.
Ken, this is Jim. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I guess it's kind of two questions. One, based on your expertise and working on this process for a long time, you mentioned that the MDT is the first phase, I believe, and then the rest is basically directed by the code. I guess my question is, has anybody ever looked at, is there ways we can improve that process by modifying the code? And then secondly, how does the Iowa process compare to other states? Are we similar or more restrictive, or and I know we have victims we have to absolutely take into consideration.
Sure.
Those are just two basic questions I just been thinking about.
As far as I know, there hasn't been any recommendations on changing the code. I haven't been involved in any of those discussions. We try to make sure we're doing the best we can with the process. Like I said, trying to review individuals after they complete treatment within a few months, if not sooner, of that, and not make them wait until the end of their sentence. So I don't know, as an agency, if there's more we can do with that piece, because it goes on to the next agency and then another after that. So I'm not sure if there is a business.
And that's probably not fair to ask you this question, but I guess the other agencies have evidently drafted the languages in the code because they feel it's appropriate. But I know we, just because we've done it this way forever, is it the best way? I have no idea.
Sure.
So who would be the agencies that would have to, be able to say, yeah, we think this is really, it's well thought out and no changes are needed? Well, you don't have to answer that today, but I think that would be helpful.
And your other question about other states, I personally have not been involved in researching other states, but I've been informed that our system is pretty similar to some states. Every state has their own process, but I haven't been involved in that investigation or research.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for your presentation.
Sorry about my tickle in the throat.
I think it's the weather.
It helped me understand the process, so thank you, Kevin.
Sure.
And I see she's on her way up, but thank you, Katrina, for presenting DOC treatment programs. Maria.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. Thanks for letting me join you by phone.
Okay. So just wanted to share our core programming. And when I talk about core programming for Department of Corrections, today I'm just looking at what takes place within the institutions. And that will include our cognitive behavioral programming, and then kind of that fifth generation of cognitive behavioral programming, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. And then go into some of the other things that we consider to be programming for the department. So when we talk about cognitive behavioral, I'm not going to go into theory or anything for you, but with cognitive behavioral, a thought precedes every action. So when we're working with people, and as Director said, with our evidence-based practices and programming and our evidence-based principles, we are looking at what are individuals' thoughts that lead to actions. How can we change those thoughts to be those pro-social, healthy, living in recovery thoughts versus other thoughts that maybe got them to us? Acceptance and commitment theory that ACTIVE is based on, and you'll see ACTIVE throughout this slide quite a bit. It's looking at people who are involved with us, the individuals, what do they value the very most? And how can they stay closer to those values versus going farther away? So people who are involved with us, I've talked with them and they're like, my main value is my family. My main value is my freedom. My main value is going out and never having to see your face again. My main value is living right, living in recovery. All of these values that many of us share, right? Same thing. So how can we help them stay closer to those values than being further apart? And so acceptance and commitment theory, but the achieving change through value-based decisions is how we help. That's that evidence-based practice, that group that they're in. And again, the main thought of it is how can we help people stay closest to their values? We have seen, especially with our Iowa Domestic Abuse Program, we have seen that in changing over to active and really focusing on those values, the individuals that we serve have been much more open to that curriculum and have done very, very great work and are staying closer to those people and things that they value. You can see that we do have SOTP, Newton Correctional Facility for Men is where we provide that programming the most. If an individual, a male individual, might have some serious mental illness or might have some physical health issues, he may complete that programming at the Iowa Medical and Classification Center. We do provide SOTP at ICIW for the women. There aren't as many women who have those offenses, but we do make sure we provide that for them. If you look at the other programs, Seeking Safety is one that we use, and that is a group that is utilized for people who have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And what that group really focuses on is present-day coping. So if someone has triggers, if someone has thoughts that come into their mind, how can they remind themselves that, today is November 17th, 2023. This is who I am today. This is what's going on around me, but it's those present day coping mechanisms that we help them learn and practice in that group. Moral recognition therapy is in several of our institutions, and I also want you to know that at a couple of our institutions, Iowa State Penitentiary, one of them, we have a trauma group for the men. So it's MRT trauma. And just going into very, smaller groups at ISP is led by a psychologist who has been trained in the class. So it's really looking at the trauma that those men have experienced and trying to help them with coping mechanisms so that they can live that better life. We also have MRT relapse prevention at ANMOSA. We're kind of piloting that right now to see how individuals respond to it, to see if we want to open it up into some of the other institutions. Director Skinner mentioned Tech to Connect. It's a very exciting program. The 2nd, the 6th, and the 7th judicial districts are involved with this, and it's actually these tablets that are programmed with so many programs for reentry planning, for positive messages every morning. In the 7th district, we even have an agreement with our mental health provider and our substance use provider to be able to conduct evaluations through the tablet and through the Tech to Connect program, which is amazing because that is a challenge that we have, is having those types of evaluations completed before a person is released. And so just very groundbreaking and very exciting, and the response from the individuals that have been involved with Tech to Connect is huge. And we even have judges who know about Tech to Connect, and they are, in their sentencing orders, are including that this person or that person shall be involved with Tech to Connect. And so that is something that we are very excited about. And as we learn through the years, how can we then replicate it with other districts and other institutions? I'm ready to plan. Thank you. So Department of Corrections is involved with the Office on Drug Control Policy, their Drug Policy Advisory Council. And every year we complete a report for them to state how much funding goes to programming for substance use and also enforcement for substance use. So you can see this past year in community-based corrections treatment, which the CBCs contract out with your local treatment providers, like Prelude here in Des Moines, ADS, CATS, CEDA, all of our community treatment providers, the districts contract with. So that the contracted services for treatment is the first number. And then when we look at enforcement at that $4 million mark, that includes drug courts, that includes drug and alcohol testing, that includes our GPS monitoring systems. So you can see that in CBC, it's almost $5,000 that is spent. Those funds go toward helping people. And you can see in the Department of Corrections, the core programs that I just went through, it's at that $2 million mark. All right, secondary education. When we talk about secondary education, what that means is our adult basic education, our high set. It used to be GED, now it's high set through the state. Special education, vocational education, life skills. We partner with 5 community colleges right now, and have for quite a while. And these community colleges have instructors that go into the prisons and actually provide the teaching and instruction for the secondary. So again, you can read through that. DMAC serves 2 prisons, ICIW in Newton, Iowa Central serves Fort Dodge, Rockwell City, Iowa Western serves Clarinda, Kirkwood serves ASP and IMCC, and then Southeastern Community College serves Mount Pleasant and Fort Madison ISP. When we go into post-secondary, what that means is Pell funds have been reinstated for people who are incarcerated. So 4 of our community colleges that we partner with actually applied for the second chance Pell grant, Pell funding. And Iowa Central actually, I think, began in 2015. So they have been our longest partner for post-secondary education. So you can see that DMAC provides post-secondary again for Newton and ICIW. You can read through that. But what that means is people who are incarcerated are eligible through the federal government for their Pell funds to pay for some correspondence classes, to pay for the post-secondary through the community colleges. Some certificate programs are also covered with that. So just any way to encourage that further learning, that continued learning. So it's very exciting. We're very happy that we have that. Within the Department of Corrections, we have 30 registered apprenticeship programs that have been signed off by the Department of Labor. So just as we have apprenticeship programs out here in our great state of Iowa, masonry, electric, HVAC, all of those, our apprenticeship programs within the institutions have to go through the very same process as an apprenticeship program out in the community. So all 30 of ours are signed off by the Department of Labor. Something to remember, and these are just a few examples I gave you. Something to remember is for us to be able to have that apprenticeship program within a prison, we must have that job. So when you think of, talk about one of my favorite topics, baking, I don't bake, but I eat the baked goods. We for sure have bakers. We have that job within the institutions, right? Because we provide food and all of that. So we have that job in the institutions. We also have the job of barber in the institutions. And we're very excited. I don't want to steal Fort Dodge's thunder, but I will anyway. They have a beautiful new barbershop where the men can be involved with the barbering apprenticeship. And so very exciting for us. But again, just remember, we have to have the job within the prison in order to be able to offer that apprenticeship program for people who are serving time with us. So with statewide reentry team, of course, we have our 8 judicial districts, we have our 9 prisons. We work with so many community partners. Corrections has a niche that we're very good at, but also so many people are releasing that we cannot do it alone. So we partner with so many faith-based and nonprofit agencies in the communities all across the state. And I've listed some there. I also want you to know that we work a lot with other state agencies. And 2 things I want to highlight with employment. So we have education, we have apprenticeships programs, we have vocational building, skills building. We are able to have 6 Iowa workforce reentry planners in our prisons. And so, now it's going to skip my mind where they're located, but we have 6 IWD staff members who are in our institutions. And they help people work on things like resumes, they work on the National Career Readiness Certificate to be able to showcase to future employers, this, as Katrina, these are my skills through my NCRC. So I can show an employer, these are the skills that I possess for you to hire me. We also have 2 Iowa Department of Transportation mobility coordinators in our prisons, and they serve Mount Pleasant, Rockville City, ICIW, and Newton, and there might be another one, I can't remember right now. But what it looks like is when you go into Newton, let's say, you go in and there's an office that looks just like DOT. And that mobility coordinator is there to go through individuals who are incarcerated, their driving records, to see what the requirements are for them to complete before getting their driver's license back, to look at what fines they may have, to look at those driving restrictions. It could be a health issue. It could be any type of issue. But those DOT mobility coordinators are there to talk about huge driving, right? Transportation. And people walk out knowing what is expected of them. Or they can start and writing letters to the courts and maybe set up payment plans. We have had even some people whose driver's license was simply expired. They can renew and walk out with a driver's license. The main response for this is we listen to people who have left incarceration and the barriers, the challenges. We listen to them. And they said, if I don't have my state issued ID, it is hard for me to open a bank account. It's hard for me to get a job if I don't have that. And so just the scope of state ID was the first goal of having those mobility coordinators with us. And it has blossomed into something even so much more than we could have anticipated. Again, some people leaving prison will walk out with their driver's license. That's huge. It's huge. And another perk, I want to touch on this when Director was talking about culture. A lot of times we up overtime, right? Or maybe it's difficult to schedule those DOT appointments. I've even had difficulties scheduling those. So staff in the institutions where we have those mobility coordinators, on their breaks, they may go and talk to that mobility coordinator and be able to not reinstate, the word is gone, but to get their driver's license. So again, it's that staff perk as well. We want to make sure, to help with staff that they don't have to take time off. They can get that completed right there. And I'll go back begin with what Director already discussed. You can see that from the staff we employ to the services that we provide, the programming, the opportunities that we provide while someone's incarcerated, and then all of that reentry support that we have, you can see that recidivism rate declining steadily. Sure.
Okay, so can you repeat again how, a really good presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
How many mobility coordinators are there here?
Okay. Yes, so right now we have two. And we have a third one that we, I think, are going to have interviews for in January. And it's been nice too, because DOT has included DOC, meaning me, in the interviews. And so I have learned so much about DOT. And just being able to help with those interviews, you know, find, again, the right person for that right seat. DOT offices are different than having your office inside of a prison, but right now we have 2 out of the 3 hired, so we'll be looking at interviews in January.
Okay, great. So then my next question is, so another barrier, because I've already talked to some people about this, but another barrier that I really think about is when I'm going to come out, how do I get like my Medicaid all lined up, my SNAP benefits, like day one, I'm ready to be mom again, my children, all those things, like do we have anything like that in place?
Yep, so then, since 2014, we have partnered with Iowa Medicaid Enterprise or Health and Human Services. So 30 days prior to a person going out on parole or even discharging their sentence, so the key is their supervision status. So parole or even discharging their sentence, we in the Department of Corrections can assist them in filling out the paperwork for state Medicaid.
Okay.
So many people will leave incarceration with their health care card in hand, or it will be waiting for them at the residence that they're going to release to. So when we know that they're going to have that coverage, the counselors in the prisons, the psychologists, reentry folks, like if a person has either mental health issues or physical health issues, we can get that appointment for them scheduled before they leave. Because they're going back to their community. They want to go back to their primary health care provider. They want to go back to people to who they have those relationships with. And so with us partnering with HHS, we are able to do that.
So, but for the Medicaid, but like I'm talking about like SNAP, child services, is like more of the, there's a lot of barriers. So
Yep.
like,
So-
so is that included in that or just Medicaid?
It would be just Medicaid, and here's that rock and a hard place. Incarceration to freedom can be from Monday to Tuesday, right? But when a person is incarcerated, they are not eligible for those benefits. So we provide them the information, or they have been involved, so they go right away. So if
Start filling out the paperwork?
we can look into that for sure, but they typically know the processes better than we do if they've been involved, but yeah, let me look into that though. And they also will work with their PO, and, many people walk out with support services and support systems, but I will definitely check into that, and I appreciate that question. Yes.
Thank you for reading.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a program at one point where individuals left the institution with 30 days of their prescriptions? Is that still?
Yes. Yep, actually, so they can walk out with a 30-day supply, physical supply, and then they have 2 prescriptions for another 60 days worth. So they have their prescriptions. And we also work with a group called SafeNet RX. And so SafeNet RX can provide psychotropic medications to help with people. And I think that their next level that they're going to is or that they're looking into is to assist with diabetic medications. So yes, we work with other places, and again, if people have an established relationship with their primary healthcare provider, they're gonna go back to those folks because they know their history and the client is comfortable there. And so, you know, we look for opportunities to help because you know those medications are really, really expensive. That's where the supervision status comes into play. So parole and discharge, you know, we can help with those.
But they have their meds to bridge the gap
They do.
for
Yes, they do.
services.
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
This programming is awesome because it sounds like everything is just set up for the inmates to leave and to have, if they want an education, they can have a apprenticeship, they have all different type of programs help. You know, they have people on hand to help get a driver's license. That's very important because without a driver's license, how do you get around? How do you get mobile to go and take care of business?
How do you prove who you are, right?
Right, so the question I have is all these programs available for every inmate? Or is it just for certain?
They would be eligible for every person, but let's say if a person has a life sentence, okay? We're going to look at who's going to be released sooner than a person with a life sentence. But that does not say that the person with a life sentence cannot be involved. But yeah, all of those, I can't think of any reason why, because it's equal services, equal programming.
Does the inmate have to request it, or is it just voluntary given? Is it just provided to each person that's maybe getting out soon, or they have to say, hey, I've heard about this program, how do I get to be a part of it? They have to ask, or they just provide it?
So a little bit of both. So when a person goes to their first institution, they have like an initial classification where, you know, we take a look at their sentence length, we take a look at their need areas, things like that. And so then a fuller examination would happen with their classification team. And that could include a psychologist, their counselor, the unit manager, the treatment director, and with looking at their need areas would determine that they will go into programming. So some people, yes, can say, hey, I'm interested in that. Do you think I could be involved with that? Yes. But for those core programs, not apprenticeship, not education, not post-secondary, none of those. But for those core, that first huge sheet, that has to do more with your classification committee. But people can express, I also forgot to mention that for the registered apprenticeship programs, you must have a high school diploma, your GED, or your HiSET to be involved in those. So that was a great question, and I'm so glad I remembered that an apprenticeship program might be the only one that a person wouldn't be able to be involved in because they didn't have that secondary education requirement met. But I will let you know, we have a new apprenticeship coordinator, and we're gonna look into that. Because we're just learning a lot, and so we're gonna look into that to see if there could be a change made there. Welcome, thank you.
Going back to Presidio, you know, for you or the director, 2.7% seems like a pretty big drop. How does that compare to the last few years? And then what would you say was the biggest contributor to that drop?
I will echo what Director said. I believe our staff and how the staff are trained. I think the people we hire and their motivation for being involved in corrections is to help. Then they go through our learning center, our new employee training. They get to their institution where they are employed and they go through that training. They, you know, have senior staff that are role models. But I think it's our staff and it's their intrinsic nature of wanting to help. And and also understanding that their role is to help.
How does the 2.7 compare to the last maybe 2 years? Is that more or less than what
That I don't know.
What,
I can't hear, sorry.
can you speak up a little bit?
The
What'd you say?
2.7% drop, is that more or less than previous, the last couple of years?
So, so since FY '20, and to compare to FY 2023, we've had a 5.3% reduction over those years.
Overall?
And, yes, and just to, back to Katrina's point, yeah, you know, she's right on. You know, it's our staff that are really committed to our philosophy of commitment to public safety, the programming, the post-secondary apprenticeship programs, all those things in combination really are driving down recidivism. It's usually not one thing, it's usually several things together that really drives recidivism down. So all those things she mentioned, I mentioned, really contribute to that. Good question.
Yeah, because I think my experience, we made a move towards, in the department, towards evidence-based programs, things that we know work. I mean, there's research to back it up. It's just not 3 people sitting in a room creating Joe's treatment plan program. I think that's been huge. I mean, my point of reference, in the last 10 years, what folks have done in this department for programming, for reentry, it's improved by leaps and bounds. And even since I've been out of the department, the things you do have improved the possibility and opportunity for folks going back to the community to not have to come back to this environment. And the other thing I'm proud of is that you're not satisfied. You continue to try to improve. And that's been key. Thank you.
And Jake, your point too is that, as mentioned earlier, is like this department is committed to always improving and seeing how we can do better and provide better services and programming and training for our staff, all those things. So I appreciate you acknowledging that.
You mentioned,
Mr. Jim, go ahead.
you mentioned community partners in your presentation. Can you give us an idea of the involvement pre-COVID versus post-COVID? Because I've gotten the impression that it's not quite back up to where it was. So can you kind of lend a picture there?
We just had a statewide reentry meeting that is put on by a bunch of us. We just had it in Des Moines. And I actually think that our efforts have increased since COVID. You know, I think COVID has become, I'm not minimizing anything, but like the flu. I mean, it's a part of our life now. And I see more efforts in reentry than prior to COVID. And we have this yearly reentry meeting, and there were more people at this last one. It was just, I think it was in October maybe. There were more community groups at this last one, and more people with lived experience, meaning they've been incarcerated. There were more people at that group, and all of us congregating together and talking about successes, talking about challenges, talking together and listening to one another. I see it as growing. Yeah, yeah. Jim, did you have a question?
Well, first of all, I think you did a great presentation. It was very well done.
Thank you.
And Beth and I have talked about this. You know, Iowa Central, where I actually work, has been involved since 2000. I think we started the process in 2013, and we were one of the first 60 colleges in the country that got selected. And so we learned with the Department of Corrections kind of on the job as we move forward, and it's been a great learning experience and we've all learned a lot. A couple of things that I've learned is we've been able to bring in $3 million of federal money through Pell to help train and have 155 Iowa prisoners get their degrees or certificates. We've touched another 900 prisoners with that same funding. So I think as these other colleges jump on board, this is a huge potential to use federal funds to help educate and train these people. But the two barriers I've learned to see that we need to work with the legislature and the governor on is funding. You know, the department has priorities, of course, for staff and security and all those things. But when it comes to technology and online learning, this system is really out of date, and that's because the state just has not invested the money. And I know the director is committed to try to help figure out a way to get the funding over the several-year period put in place. And then the second thing is, prisons were built to lock people up. They weren't built to educate. So we have a tremendous need in many of the facilities for additional learning space. And if we can deal with those things, I think we can touch and have an even better impact on recidivism. And I know the director is committed to this, and I think if the board could support it in any way, it would be helpful. So, Beth, I don't know if you want to add any comments, but I know you're very aware of all that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to see all of you.
Okay, now we will be moving on to action items, starting with Steve and the telephone rebate expenditures. Yep.
Good morning, board. Mine kind of piggybacks on a lot of what Katrina just talked about. She set up a lot of what we use those telephone rebate funds for. So just briefly, the telephone fund is made up of revenues that are beyond the expenses for our inmate phone calls. Currently, we charge 11 cents per minute for an in-state local call. 8 cents goes towards the cost of the call. 3 cents then goes into the fund that we're going to talk about that we use for inmate benefit types of items that can be beneficial to our population. International calls, those rates are much higher, so we do not charge anything above and beyond. We just cover the cost of those calls. So there is nothing added to those that would go into this fund. It just physically, the cost to the inmate is the cost of the call. So as we kind of walk through the list, like I said, a lot of it goes to what Katrina just spoke about. Our request for, which is an action item once again, our request for expenditures out of this fund for the fiscal year 2024 that we're in. First item is education, secondary education, $500,000. It helps supplement not only the relationships or those contracts that we have with the community colleges for secondary education, but also vocational education and opportunities for our population and clients. The second item, once again, right off of what Katrina spoke about, relationship with the DOT for those mobility specialists to provide those inmate IDs and telephone or driver's licenses. $144,000 towards that. Once again, preparing those folks for reentry and getting them set up in a better spot. The third item is the same type of thing. IWD, our relationship with IWD for the workforce advisors, working on those resumes, preparing those folks for better job skills and preparation for working once they exit our institutions. $144,000. Fourth one wasn't necessarily talked about. We have an agreement with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, to do some peer training for our incarcerated population to be able to assist other incarcerated individuals with issues that they may be dealing with. So it's like a secondary counselor that you've got people on the units that can help with those issues that folks are having. We've committed $100,000, and once again, direct inmate benefit. We're using these monies for those purposes. The fifth item is something that's been on the list for a number of years. Provides the inmate law library for our incarcerated population to have access to those case law records and such to build whatever research that they need to do. The sixth item is telephone administration. This does fund one position at Iowa State Penitentiary to oversee this fund. I believe it's an administrative assistant type of position, clerical that does that. So that's covered within this cost. And then just translation services and miscellaneous as needed, a small token amount that that's necessary or needs to be paid for, it's included as well. So a total of $1,041,784 to be spent during the fiscal year. Just to kind of put it in perspective, we have spent a little less than that over the last few years, but we did ramp up during COVID. We provided those inmate phone calls to assist with communication since we weren't doing the in-person visits. So at that time, we were actually spending a little over $1 million as well. We do bring in about $800,000 a year, but we do have a substantial cash balance in that fund right now, so we want to responsibly spend that down as necessary to provide these beneficial services to the population. So I would ask if there's any questions, and if not, have the action item voted on.
Steve, I just have one question. This is Jim, and I support all your requests. Is so 800,000 on average what we bring in revenue from full rate income?
Correct.
Great. Okay, that's all I had.
I would make a motion that we approve the vendor telephone rebate expenditures for fiscal year '24 for these programs.
Thank you. Hearing a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed?
Aye.
Expenditures are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Michael Savala, you're up for 2 action items, starting with the ISP easement.
All the fun stuff. So, first, Joanna's gonna throw up that code section. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little backup of why this is in front of you. The driver provides directly the authorities to acquire and sell real estate. And when that happens, you'll see in the first subsection, it is subject to approval of the board. So I just wanted to let you know that. The second thing is any sale proceeds may be used to purchase other real estate for capital improvement projects. We have a lot of needs across the state, both at the institutions and community-based facilities for major maintenance type of issues. So I just wanted to let you know any property that the DOC sells, where it will go and what it will be used for. So are there any questions on this? I will go blame.
This is Jim again. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I support all of that. And I am fortunate enough to get off because we're moving to another family event. So have a nice weekend, and thanks for letting me be on the phone as long as I could.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So the first request here is for an easement by a utility company at the Iowa State Penitentiary. So this is a pretty common easement. They want to come up with one easement for the purposes of replacing telephone poles and electrical transmission lines. So the purpose of an easement is to give someone else the legal authority to come onto your property for a certain purpose. So this easement authority would allow the utility company to come on to the land, and here is kind of an overview. And again, this is land that's way outside of the main prison, so it is just, it's farmland. It's being maintained by the prison industry. So again, this will give the utility company permission to come on and place the poles, put the lines in, and then in the future, if there's any needed maintenance tied to the poles or the lines, this easement would give the utility company permission to do that as well. So with any real estate transaction, I have worked closely with the Attorney General's office on this. And we did have the property surveyed, we had it appraised, and so part of this easement request is the utility company will be paying the Department of Corrections $35,000 for the purpose of coming on. And we were looking at about a tract of land here that's about 10 acres in length, about 1.5 miles. So it just doesn't stop on the Department of Corrections property. They're also replacing the lines on the properties on both sides of the road. So it's kind of a, it's a major project, and a lot of other property owners will be impacted by this project. So, is there any questions?
Hearing none questions, can I have a motion to approve the ISP easement? Seconded? I second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? All right. Next, we'll move on to the farmland sales.
we're getting that load. The governor has, talked about the governor's asked state agencies to take a look at the farmland and just needed it to sell on that land. It's not needed. So this is a project that's pretty massive because it's impacting a lot of executive branch agencies and health and human services as farmland around some of their facilities as well. So Department of Administrative Services is actually kind of been tasked with spearheading, working with various agencies and getting the farmland inventory, making sure that all the processes are followed. So we do have a representative today from Department of Administrative Services. So that's why I wanted to let you know this is a partnership with them. So here is a picture of the North Central Correctional Facility up here with the red diagram. And what we're looking at, what's in front of you today is this tract of land that's 138.05 acres down here that's enclosed with the yellow. So, so a couple things tied to this. Again, this property was surveyed, it was appraised, make sure that there's a clean title for the state to give. One of the things that we run into with the prisons is these facilities have been around for so long that no one really has the original abstract of the land. So we have to actually go back in and pinpoint exactly where are our property, no different than a residential sale. You want to go in and make sure where are our property lines, make sure that you're going to get a clean title, and have to work with the Attorney General's office on this endeavor. So, again, so we are going to, I guess, DAS has hired what's called like a land auction company. So the next step is they will take it to the land auction, put it up, post it, and then this company will try to sell that land. So we did get an appraisal on it. It's very important for the state to get fair market value for any real estate. So we're looking at right now, probably each acre, I think, based on the appraisal report that we received in October, it's coming to about $14,922 per acre. So in total, we're looking at about $2,060,000 that this sale of 138 acres could potentially generate in proceeds. And again, any receipts that we get will go in for use for capital expenditures. And there's always a plan across the state. So is there any questions on there?
Well, it does seem weird to me, and I know you guys went through all with that corner down there. It's so weird.
Which one?
That
This
corner.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I did call the appraisal person because I actually kind of had the same question you did, because it almost seems like the yellow line crosses over this road. And I wanted to make sure we weren't selling the road. And they said, no, it's just for illustrative purposes only. That's why things don't line up. So, yeah, we have reviewed it very closely.
Is someone currently farming that property?
No. Again, this is land that is really managed. So any farmland that TOC has is typically managed by Iowa Prison Industries. So no one is using this land.
So it's just
It's just
sit there?
sitting there.
Yeah. Now, the other important thing I want you to know too, we also go through the whole review process from a security standpoint. We want to make sure there's enough buffer between whatever we sell and the actual prisons. We've got our security folks involved, we're working up there. Everyone taking a look at that, make sure that we have still maintain a good security buffer between the prison and everyone. So,
Is there any concern about, for lack of a better word, being landlocked a little bit? I mean, if down the road, there was a reason to want to expand or build a vocational building or something like that, that you're landlocked now, don't have that.
that's a really good question, and one that we asked. And so there is this vacant tract of land up here that the Department of Corrections owns that we could do some future growth on.
What is the home industries part of it? Where do they build the homes at?
So this is Rockwell City.
Oh, whatever.
We're at the
Oh, I
North
thought you
Central.
said
Names kind of sound familiar.
Oh.
Yeah, we're at the North Central
Okay, that was like.
Correctional Facility. Yeah.
Okay.
We have the
Oh,
North
help
West
me.
Iowa.
Have we had any interest in this so far?
We're just in the planning stages. So again, it will go to the auction company. They will, of course, publish notice, give them one opportunity to come in and bid. So before we went to that next process, we wanted to make sure we go out to you.
Any idea what that amount of land is going for?
So as part of the appraisal, they came back with, right now, with per acre, generated about $2,000.
All right, I've heard a motion to approve. Can I have that seconded?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And those opposed? All right, North Central Corrections Facility Tax Sales.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. And last, Nick, you've got, okay, it's not on here, right? Tell me it's not on here. Right. Is this the warden approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, members of the Board of Corrections, again, and welcome to Central Office. I'm Deputy Director of Institutional Operations in Atlanta. Prior to being selected as the Deputy Director, I was the warden in Anamosa State Penitentiary, and part of that, Warden Dodge and North Central Correctional Facility. I'm humbled and honored to be entrusted in this new responsibilities, and I thank the Board of Corrections and the Director. Also, I thank the thousands of dedicated staff for all of their support and sacrifices that they make daily for the state of Iowa. It's my honor to present you today the two newest members of our warden's team, if confirmed by the board, Mr. Don Harris and Mr. Brian Foster. Mr. Foster and Mr. Harris are more than qualified in these new roles, and I hope you will entrust both of them and confirm both these outstanding labor leaders today. For your first consideration, I'm going to introduce you to hopefully future Warden Brian Foster. Brian currently is the Director of Security Operations here with the department. Brian Foster began his career at Corrections in 1985 with the Illinois Department of Corrections as a correctional officer. Mr. Foster served with many capabilities while with the Illinois Department of Corrections, working his way through the ranks to include Assistant Warden of Operations. Foster has also served with the Wisconsin Department of Corrections as Deputy Warden and Warden of 3 different facilities. He also held the position of Security Chief for the Wisconsin DOC prior to coming to Iowa, where he is in his current role. Throughout his career, Foster has focused on providing incarcerated individuals with a safe and secure means to assist them in preparations for eventual release and reentry into society. He currently holds a master's degree in criminal justice administration. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself to the board?
Good morning. We've all met many times over this last few years, so I want to thank Director Skinner for this opportunity, and of course the board as well for this opportunity. This department is a very forward-moving department, and I hope to take my experiences to Anamosa and really carry that institution forward and create a much more open and better facility there as well for staff and for the offenders. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, for your second consideration would be, hopefully, Warden Don Harris, Fort Dodge, North Central Correctional Facility. Don Harris graduated high school from Des Moines Lincoln High School in 1990. Don then went to attend the University of Northern Iowa, where he graduated in 1995 with BA in Social and Behavioral Sciences with an emphasis on criminology. After graduating from college, Don started with the Iowa Department of Corrections as a correctional officer at the Loretta Correctional Facility. After 2 years at CCF, Don then transferred to the Iowa Medical and Classification Center. 4.5 months after transferring to Iowa Medical Classification Center, Don was promoted to Assistant Unit Manager at the Fort Dodge Correctional Facility in May of 1998. Don then promoted to Unit Manager. Don then later promoted to Security Director of Fort Dodge. On Don's 20-year anniversary date with the Iowa Department of Corrections, Don was promoted to Deputy Warden at Fort Dodge Correctional Center and has been in this position for the past 8 years. Don has been the acting warden of Fort Dodge and North Central Correctional Center facilities since August 30th of this year. Don.
Thank you, Board. I just like to continue doing what we're doing and continue down that good road with our staff and get more people out that don't need to be in our prison.
Brian Foster and Don Harris have distinguished and dedicated careers as public servants of the people of Iowa, and will be invaluable additions to the Iowa Department of Corrections' mission of creating opportunities for safer communities.
Any question? Nothing against either of these two outstanding gentlemen, but are we as the board no longer involved in interviewing select boards and that change?
He was involved in the work that we are. We
Did we
interviewed
get to interview these?
Don, yes.
You were part of that? That's the code that is the chair and all that.
We reached out, asked if anybody would like to participate.
Must have missed it.
Any other questions?
Hearing no more questions, would somebody like to make a motion for word approval?
Was anyone else reached out to participate in that interview? Okay.
Because he wasn't either and I wasn't. So who did you reach out to?
I'm not the one that reached out, sir.
Then we'll get to reaching out.
I reached out to the chair.
Okay, why was the rest of us left out?
That's no different than what I've done in the past. Just reach out to the chair and they're available to recommend somebody else to serve.
All right, may I have a motion?
I would make a motion that we approve Don Harris as the permanent warden at the Fort Dodge Correctional Facility, and Brian Foster as the warden at the Emergency State Penitentiary.
Thank you.
And I second.
Thank you. Having a motion and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those approved?
Yes or no for me?
Thank you. I think we still have the majority, so that will pass. Okay. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we're going to move on to public comments, and we will be handling them for those of you who were here at the last meeting. We will be handling the public comments the same. If you haven't attended, you have 2 minutes for your comments. I will try to give you a 20-second warning to be ready to wrap up, and then we ask that you would take your seat. If you don't take your seat, I will have to ask you to be ushered out. So I just want you to know how that's going to work before we start. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name, and please correct me. So we're going to start. You're good. Okay, thanks. We'll start with David Bobenmeyer. Yes.
My name is David Bovenmeyer. I'm a pastor at Stonebrook Community Church in Ames, Iowa. For 21 years, my wife and I have supported our friend David Wayne Morrow. David has completed his sentence for sexual assault and was transferred to Newton. Upon completion of the sex offender treatment program, he scored extremely low in risk to reoffend, 3 on a scale of 48. Yet David was referred to the Attorney General for possible civil commitment. The result is that David will most likely remain in prison for an additional 13 years, since it seems to be the AG's office has a firm policy not to address referrals until 90 days prior to the release date. My wife and I were involved in counseling David prior to his offense, and we are intimately aware of the false beliefs and emotional trauma that was present in his life as a result of a mother wound. Total rejection by his mom, almost total rejection. We're also aware that during his incarceration, David has thoroughly resolved that mother wound, and that has so skewed his perspective of women. I appreciate Ken's explanation of the MDT process, but it's clear that there's no opportunity for self-advocacy or for advocacy from counselors or others who may be closely aware of the offender's changes in thinking and beliefs. Large changes can happen in prison. Faith in God can develop, wounds can be healed. When a man like David, who has worked so hard to repent and reform himself, uncovering the wounds and false beliefs that contribute to his crime, when such a man is referred to the AG, something is wrong with the process. Give a man and his advocates the opportunity to present himself and his story to the MDT so that fewer mistakes happen. And I know James has left us, but I think that a code change that could be helpful is to require the AG's office to take up within a certain time period after referral, maybe 6 months or a year.
Thank you. All right, Dawn.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm Dawn Goldenmeyer from Ames, Iowa, and I visited with you twice before regarding what I believe to be misuse and failing to follow the spirit of Iowa's civil commitment law. And I do appreciate the effort that you have taken to listen to my concerns in the past as evidence in the discussion that happened today, and for inviting input to address these questions and concerns. In particular, I'm appealing for my friend David Morrow, who's been incarcerated for 21 plus years, served his time for a sexual offense with a clean record, has successfully completed the required coursework at Newton Correctional, and is deemed very low to repeat, as my husband has said, demonstrated repeatedly that he is a reformed man and he's ready to be released. And yet, due to this misuse of the civil commitment laws, he remains in prison today. It's my hope that the guidelines and the code determining which inmates are being referred to the Attorney General for civil commitment, rather than being considered for parole, are re-examined, and that inmates such as our friend David be given fair and timely evaluation leading to parole. Bottom line, people can change for the better. And let's factor that into the equation. So thanks once again for listening, turning attention to the seeming weakness in our system. And like you, as we've been hearing today, I've decided to see the Iowa prison system become an even better one. And in this particular area, become a model for other states to follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next comment will come from Michelle Alfano.
Board members, this week Director Skinner and I are both invited to be guests on a Chicago talk radio show. It's 8:20 a.m. this Sunday. And I invite you to tune in and listen to our conversation. I hope Dr. Skinner accepts her invitation. I'm excited about this opportunity, especially because what Dr. Skinner, what you said today about always being committed to improving and being on the same page and working as one team, that gives me a lot of hope. And I want to be on that team to make the DOC better. The past 3 weeks, Eric Strang, who I advocate for, and I have suffered significant retaliation and repression for speaking out. The retaliation at Newton Correctional has been severe and inhumane. This is one of the reasons why so many staff members at Newton quit. Our understanding is that 16 staff members have quit, and today begins a modified lockdown because there's no staff. I'm glad that you've taken finally the concern to learn about the MDT, but I want to emphasize to you that when Ken Pierce refers these cases, it's not based on what people did, because they've served their time for what they did, but it's more on a hunch of what they might do in the future. And this is a frightening amount of power. I'm concerned that tax dollars get spent on a treatment program if we're not taking into account what people learn and make progress in their treatment program.
Thank you for your comment. All right, next is Dawn Peters.
too. So I'm gonna be the one that's probably gonna shake things up a little bit. I am from Newton. I pay my tax dollars. In fact, my property butts right up to the prison. So I live that close. And I know lots of employees that have worked at the prison in the past or currently do work at the prison. And I would challenge Dr. Skinner that I don't think your employees are as happy as you claim they are. There's a lot that goes on there. And I would encourage you guys to look further into those issues. You've got, I know somebody made a comment about, your staff or leaders, and they're gonna train the people that come in. Your staff are the ones that are bringing drugs into your prison. I know that for a fact. So I would encourage the board of directors to look a little bit further into their staff. The seasoned employees do things wrong, and so then the inmates say, well, if you bring me X, Y, and Z, then I won't tell. There's a lot of lying that goes on over there, and I know this for myself firsthand. Okay. And the re-entry program, I am a sexual abuse survivor myself. I was sexually abused by my stepfather from the age of about 4 until about 12. And I am a successful business person. There's a lot of issues over there, a lot, and I would encourage you to look into it.
Thank you for your comment. Next is Richard Willenman and Nancy. Richard and Nancy? Okay, I'm getting the signal that they left, thank you. Next is Buffy Cackley. Buffy Cackley. Hector Pagan.
Hello, my name is Hector. I live in Urbandale. I'm a community member, and I have a stack of about over 100 letters that we would like to present to the board members and the director about family members and community members of incarcerated people that have found it hard to communicate with their loved ones. And we would also like to present a list of demands that we would like the board and the directors to listen to on top of these letters. Decarceration. Minimize the number of individuals being arrested. Parole boards must release people at the governor, and the governor must commute sentences in order to decrease the prison jail time population enough to allow for safety protocols. Suspend ICE enforcement and release immigrants in ICE custody, especially individuals that are most vulnerable by the virus. The majority of people being detained by ICE are no danger to the community. Communication demands. Reinstate the prior visitation policy for in-person visits of 5 days a week, 8 times per person per month, with visitors able to come during visiting hours when convenient for them. Weekend visits should not count as special visits, but rather as 2 of the 8 allotted visits. With new policy, each individual is only allowed 1 in-person visit and 1 video visit per week, which is a huge burden on people with large families and support networks, especially for family and friends who visit from out of town. Eliminate strip searches and visitation room polling for video visits. There is no security risk in conducting a video call, and therefore no need to strip search people prior to these visits. The required visitation clothing, which is already worn out and undignified to wear, leaves few clean clothes for people that have in-person visits. This is dehumanizing and unnecessary. Eliminate the need to sign up for visitations on the Melio app in advance. I'll leave this here for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blake Iverson.
Good morning, Board. My name is Blake Iverson. I'm a Des Moines resident. I will be continuing the demands that have been advocated by incarcerated Iowa Department of Corrections. It is difficult for visitors to find time slots that work for their schedules and plan visits less than 1 week in advance, and not all visitors have access to a smart device to sign up through the app. Allow visits to occur on all weekdays and return to the Google Hangouts platform where multiple people can join the same call from different locations. Currently, video visits can only be scheduled on Mondays and Fridays with one visitor at a time unless they all call in from the same location. Allow food and snack access for visitors at all facilities. There's currently no access in visiting rooms at Anamosa. Ensure that snail mail and photographs arrive in a timely manner, that is less than 2 weeks from the time they were sent, with no additional financial barriers besides postage. Currently, the mail system through Pigeonly takes anywhere from 2 weeks to multiple months for mail to be delivered to people in prison. Ensure that any copies of photographs received by mail are of good or original quality. Scanned copies of photos on printer paper make images appear blurry, and they are often folded and creased down the middle when received. Eliminate the requirement of wearing wristbands to indicate tip level. Incarcerated people in Iowa already have colored stickers on their IDs so the staff can check their levels. Wearing wristbands is unnecessary and dehumanizing. Pay all incarcerated workers a living wage. Prices of commissary products have doubled and even tripled in the past months with no increases in wages for incarcerated workers.
You have 20 seconds.
Providing adequate mental health services and resources for all incarcerated people who want or need them, and ensure that these services are available at all times. Allow incarcerated people to access all media and music purchased on their tablets if the state switches to a new vendor. Thank you.
Patrick Stahl.
The last one you got to, Blake?
Clarify specific parameters.
Got it. I'm Patrick Stahl. I'm also a community member. I'm a member of Des Moines Beach Late. I'm going to finish off this list of demands. They didn't let us finish last time we were here. Clarify specific parameters and guidelines used to determine whether or not an individual's commutation will be approved by the governor. Since the beginning of her term in office, the governor has denied every communication request, regardless of the parole board's recommendation, on the basis of criminal record severity of crime conditions, which cannot be changed by an individual making efforts at character improvement. In order for this process to be used at all, individuals need to know exactly what they need to do in order to successfully receive a sentence commutation. Eliminate the practice of decreasing pay when incarcerated people are transferred from one facility to another, especially if it can be proven that one person has been trained for the position. Last, end the practice of taking money out of private sector workers' paychecks for restitution if they have already paid their restitution in full or do not have legal restitutions to be paid. And before I sit down, we will be outside the building after this. If you want to talk to us, we do have a prison abolition organization. I know a lot of people here have concerns and things they want to bring to the board. These people probably aren't going to listen to us or do anything that we ask while we're here. We are trying to organize a network of solidarity and mutual aid outside of this. So if you see me or any of the 3 people sitting in that row there, you can come talk to us. We can get you hooked up. We do have monthly meetings, probably more democratic than these ones. Is it okay if I actually present these up to you? Is that Skinner?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Smelton.
Hi, here we go. My name is Susan Smelton. I'm a nurse educator. I have a master's degree in nursing, so let's do some evidence-based information on how people fix things. Angola, worst prison in the United States. Guess what? They are not the worst prison anymore because they use Prison reform. Alabama is now the worst prison in the United States. But you know what's even scarier than that? Iowa comes in behind Alabama at 51 in the nation for psychiatric care. Anybody worth their salt that's worked psych, when you give medications, it is a box of chocolates. You do not know what's going to happen to that person. You don't know how it's going to be received. The next thing is the statistics in Iowa. 1 out of every 4 people in this room, including myself, has a psychiatric degree or a diagnosis. So let's lock you up in a cell. Let's strip search you. Let's take away all your family. Let's go ahead and push drugs on you that nobody that knows you doesn't know how it's affecting you. And let's give you people to tell you what to do that you're not communicating with, that they don't understand you. 2 things I'm pushing for. Cameras, turn them on. If you're doing the right thing, no problem, including your inmates. Nurses need to wear them too. You got drugs disappearing in there. They're not 1 or 2 pills. They are on pill packs, and there are 30, 60, 90 pills. Imitrex seems to be the #1 drug that I am aware of that's missing. You don't have an in-house board that is following your nurses. Thank you very much. Let's do prison reform.
Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment.
Gabriel, you should be on there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Your baby.
So, I know I'm a kid, I know most people don't listen to kids, but, I'm basically representing where my dad has to done. He did not do this, I know him. Me and Angel and Grandma know that he did not do this. He would not do anything bad to anyone. We can't see him. We did when he was moved to other jails, and there's a certain somebody that wants to put him in prison for 30 years, and I don't want that to happen. I don't. Maybe we could work out something like every month we see him, or in a bill. And, yeah, that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Now, we've concluded the public comments, so we'll move on to open discussion among the board members.
I want to say, the current system of things happening behind closed doors or only involving the chair, like Becky does not speak for this entire board. Things like interviews and only being, like, we're not even informed. I don't even know what happened. Get a hearing. Oh, Becky's the only person that knows about any of this. That does not seem right. She does not speak for all of us. We should be all involved in these processes. There's no way that makes any sense to me. That we're sitting here, we are just now finding out that there's movement that happened, and only she was informed about it. What sense does that make? You're a board, she doesn't speak for the entire board. That's my comment. Strongly recommend we look into changing that process.
I have a comment. I really, Brian, congratulations on your new position. Don, congratulations on your new position. Young man, it means a lot for you to come out and voice your opinion on your dad's behalf. That takes a lot of courage. So, thank you for coming out. We have to do better as a board. We know that. We have to do better as people, all of us. And so our goal now should be just to do better. The programs that are provided in the prisons are awesome. To have all those different programs to make sure someone has a license, making sure people have different apprenticeship programs that they can leave prison and have an opportunity to have a job and a career is awesome. I believe that, Dr. Skinner, I believe you're doing your best. I believe that everyone is trying to do their best to make our Department of Corrections better here in Iowa. Yes, there are some flaws, there's gonna be some flaws, but we have to do better all in all of us, you know. And so everyone that came out, we appreciate you traveling. That means a lot, you know, to take out of your personal time to travel. I'm sorry for my tardiness today. I driving, trying to get here, left my glasses in the car, I had my sunglasses on. They are prescription, but I want to do better, so we all can do better. And thank you for being the chair and everyone here. Webster, I thank you for always being honest and voicing your opinion, because there's things that people want to say and they're afraid to say them. And so sometimes we have to voice those opinions to make sure things are brought to the forefront and that we can do better. So that's my comment.
And Chair, I'd like to make some comments, and I'm one of those people that have to write everything down that I say, so just bear with me. But I've been thinking about this for a long time, and it just really is important for me to share this with you today as a board member. All of us have been appointed as board members to serve on this board, and we're humbled and we're honored to serve on this board. We are listening. We're thinking about this. We love when the public comes to these meetings. It gives us something to think about. And as board members, we have to put facts before feelings. All of us do. Facts before feelings. And that's not something I want you to think about. This department has to put facts before feelings. And I think what we all have to do is we have to build trust with one another. And it takes a long time to build trust. Sometimes trust is broken in areas. Some of us have been parents. We know that when trust is broken, it takes a long time to build trust with one another. And I think that we are all going to need to work together to build trust. And that means that we're going to have to build trust with when we're going to visit. Sometimes trust has been broken and we can't have all those visitation hours that we wanted. We've got to do better, that we follow rules that are in place. And I hear you that you want more visitation hours, but some people did things and now we can't have as many. That makes me sad. I also want to say that we have some amazing DOC employees. And when I'm been pretty new on the board, I can't even remember for sure when I came on the board, but I've gotten to meet so many amazing DOC wardens that have come on, and it's a sacrifice to be working in these positions. It's not like they're making tons of money working in these positions. They want to make lives better. They're committed to making lives better. And I remember when I first, am I being timed? No. Okay. When I first met Nicholas Lamb, no, don't do that to me. When I first met Warden Lamb, he gave me a cell phone number. And I appreciated that. And thank you for now that you're the deputy director and you're still gonna, I just appreciate that. We have a great leader in Director Skinner. She cares about everyone. She does. But this is a hard thing. We have to keep people safe within the institutions. We have to keep people safe outside of the institutions. Safety is number one. And so it's hard. This is hard. And COVID set us back. We all have to understand COVID set us all back. And I'm saying the same thing over and over. But I think that the next thing I'm going to say is, we have to build trust. And then I was going to say, we have to be an encouragement to one another, and we have to encourage our DOC employees. We have to encourage them. We're here to encourage them. The public needs to encourage them. Drop them an encouragement note. Yes, tell them what's going on. I think that's important. But encouragement is so important. It's a thankless job. Encourage them. And you're doing a good job with that. The next thing I'm gonna say is, I'm a woman of faith, and you know what I believe in? Prayer. So I'm gonna challenge all of us, let's start praying that we can come up with solutions that will change things. The department is listening to you. Look what happened today. We had a great review on this MT, on all of the programming, but we need to pray. And I'm thinking about this, and I'm so thankful for the public, and I'm thankful for the department. I'm thankful for every hardworking employee. And last June 8th, they had the most amazing program up at that state capitol. The leadership of the department, they honored all of the employees within the DOC. All of the employees. It was such an amazing day that they honored all these employees that worked so hard, and I'm talking about all levels of employees. So I think that is really important. But again, I want to say, put facts over feelings, and I want to get to work, because I really believe Iowa, just like what you said, Don, Iowa could be a model for DOCs across the country. So if we all work together, I really think we could do that. And I really believe that, and I've sat here and I've listened and I've thought about it, and I really think that we want to, all of us want to be a model. And we all care a lot about people. We're all coming from different directions, but we need to sit and listen and hear, and maybe there's lots of hard conversations. So anyway, I'll quit talking. My dad was a pastor. I should clarify. Sometimes I get in on my own. So anyway, thank you. And that's my comments for today.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just say this has been mentioned before. You know, I worked at Precious for almost 37 years, and now I'm on this board. Because I believe people can change. I absolutely believe people can change, or I wouldn't have done this that many years. I also believe that as a department, we have an obligation to make sure we're protecting the public and the victims out there, and especially with the civil commitment process. I understand if it was my family member, I may not love how this goes, but the department follows the criteria laid out in the code. They're not making a decision about anything other than this is the criteria. So we need to move this person on and make sure that we are doing our due diligence to make sure the public is safe, those victims aren't re-victimized, things like that. It's not a personal vendetta against anybody or anything like that. Many of these folks do change, and many of them will not be civil committed. It's a small number. But, you know, I said this before, and I'll say it again. I won't do anything to improve the process, but I'm not going to lose sight of the victims in this either. And sometimes nobody talks for them. So that's it. And I do appreciate folks coming forward, expressing their concerns, and I think those things need to be looked into, you know, but I don't want to lose sight of some of this stuff. Thank you.
All right. I don't think there's any more comments.
I just say to all the comments today, as usual, honestly, I hate seeing the faces here. I wish I didn't have to see it again. I've seen it over and over again. It makes me feel the same way. I don't know if anything will change about it, if I'm being honest. But I've learned over the years on this board, pushing out of to that I can't change it. I don't think we can change it. As time goes on, the rules change constantly to give us the best and best power, best and best access. So in real life, I don't think it really made any
December meeting is